The following is a Live the Dream Media production.
Hello and welcome to the Faith Family Schools podcast with your host Christopher DeSimone.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of Faith Family Schools, America's Road Back. Remember, follow us go to faithfamilyschools.com, and that'll lead you to a variety of ways to watch the content, follow the content, and make sure you refer and recommend us to 5 of your friends that also think that the America's Road Back is through better faith, families, and schools. And again, if you want to recommend guests or topics, go to faithfamilyschools@gmail.com. And good morning to today's guest. It is Chris Holmberg.
Good morning.
Educational Services Alliance.
Yes, sir.
And what's a website that the folks can follow along on the interweb, as we say?
ESA CONNECTION.com.
All right, so tell us what that is for the rookies out there. What is an ESA? Not the other ESA, but what? Talk about Educational Services Alliance. Describe what it is.
So it's 4 people that got together as an alliance to help education in Arizona. So Tammy Johnson's our CEO. She's been an ESA vendor since 2015, and she's always had it on her heart to train other people to become ESA vendors. So she trained my wife, Cindy. Both of them have like 10-year careers in public school.
Okay.
My wife had to leave public school to care for our mother, and so she became an ESA vendor, and Tammy helped her do that. And then myself, and then I have a nephew who's our tech guru.
Sure, we all have a nephew who's a tech guru.
He's everybody needs a JD. Like you could just give him anything, and it's funny because he'll say, "Oh yeah, I got that," and then he'll go Google it and figure it out. Like he just can figure out anything. So he's our tech guy.
What is an ESA vendor?
So an ESA vendor is somebody that, for the most part, they're going to be teaching, or they're going to have a product or service that's in the educational space, and they're going to be registered with ClassWallet and the ESA program with the state so that they can accept ESA funds. Although there's plenty of vendors out there like dance studios and things that aren't officially registered with ClassWallets, parents can still use their services, but they have to file for a reimbursement. If a business is registered with ClassWallet, though, it all flows through the system and the billing's just much easier.
All right, we're gonna go way to the back, front of the beginning of this for the folks. I know what it is. Explain an empowerment scholarship.
So an empowerment scholarship, it's not a voucher. First of all, there's a lot of folks in the media that I think either they don't know or they know, and maybe they have a different motive with how they're trying to brand the program. But an ESA is think of it like the epitome of flexibility for the parent. The money truly follows the student wherever they go, however they go. So it's a scholarship that's set up by the state. You, as a parent, you have to check the box to unenroll your learner from public school because you can't double dip. And then they can get a scholarship of approximately $7,000. It varies by district. If there's special needs involved, it could be up to $43,000. But there's therapies, there's technology, special equipment that they might need, and so the ESA program funds that into a scholarship that's managed by the ESA program under the Department of Education, as well as ClassWallet is the third-party administrator of the money, and so it's a circle. So my wife, for example, if she was tutoring your third grader for math, she would send you an invoice for that. You would approve it, send it to the state. The state approves it, looks at through their requirements, sends it to ClassWallet, and then they process the payment back to my wife.
So the state of Arizona using a third-party vendor, is that kind of the way these things usually play out, or is it something that you and I talked before, maybe they didn't have money or have time to staff up?
No, it by statute. That was written into the ESA. So
okay.
The thing that people need to understand in Arizona, the 5 different ways to educate, they're in statute. So public school, then you have the charter system, which is really like a private company owning a school that reports through the district to the public school. Then you have private school. Then you have traditional homeschooling, which they educate under an affidavit. So they basically sign an affidavit that said, I don't need anything from the state, no money, anything, but you don't have any, I don't have any accountability back to the state either. So they're truly homeschooling on their own. And then the fifth way is ESA. And there's I think a concern with homeschool and legitimate, because 20, 30 years ago, people were getting thrown in jail for trying to homeschool their kids in Arizona, right?
That is true.
And so they're very protective of that, and rightly so. They work very hard for it. I think the concern is once you start taking money from the government, even with an ESA program, that they're going to start getting their tentacles into what, and want accountability and want reporting. And the traditional homeschool parents, they want none of that.
Right.
And so the cool thing with all those 5 different ways, Arizona, even though kind of Florida's getting, I think, now known as number 1 for school choice, I think when I look at their program versus our program, Arizona got it right, because they give the most amount of flexibility to the parents. And that comes, it's like Spider-Man, that comes with great responsibility, because those parents now need to be consumers of educational services.
So the haters of the program will always say, oh, there's this person that did blank, right?
Of course.
Like their kid wanted to learn cooking, so they use the ESA to remodel their kitchen. That's the one I've heard that.
Or the chicken coop thing, or the $4,000 piano that just came up on Channel 15's, Well, here's the thing, right? You're always going to have people that do things like that.
Sure.
But, there was, I live up in the west side of the valley up in Phoenix, and the Buckeye school system, they had a superintendent who over the last 5 years got overpaid $1.7 million. And I don't know what happened to that. It just sort of disappeared. Like, where's the account? That's one deal for $1.7 million. That's a lot of chicken coops,
Amen.
Yeah. So the cool thing about the ESA program and the Channel 15 investigative reporter, I mean, she definitely had, she was on a tear, and I was very impressed. John Ward did it was a 9-minute interview that I saw. I don't know how long it actually lasted.
Right.
But she was like, well, what about this $4,000 piano that this family bought? And he's like, hey, if they get a $7,000 scholarship and they choose to spend $4,000 on it, that must be pretty important to that child's education. I mean, who knows? Maybe they're a
of all
savant,
the things to buy, right, that you're going to criticize.
But still, that's all the money they're going to get. If that's how they choose to spend it,
correct,
they are in the best position to determine what is the priority for that learner. And so that's the ESA program. Compare that to a voucher program where the money for vouchers really just stays in the school system. It just moves pots. Like, oh, you don't want to go to your district school, so you're going to go to the one over here, or the private school over here. We'll move that money for you. And so it doesn't have near the flexibility or the parent accountability that.
But open enrollment like that is always the slippery slope to get where we're at in Arizona. Slippery slopes are sometimes good.
Yeah.
No, right?
For sure.
That's where it started, right?
For sure. And the other thing I'll say about Arizona, so I looked at, so we have about 70,000 learners now in the program, and that was like exponential growth. Like, it was 12,000 learners in June of 2022, mostly special needs. And now the numbers I saw, we have about 15,000 learners that are special needs, but the balance of that 70,000 is, they go to private school, but a lot of them are complex spending. Like, the parents have a math tutor here and a science tutor here, and maybe they have a learning pod or a micro school, or they're doing online programs and curriculum. So, that scholarship money being in a pool, and the way they set up the system to process the payments. And now John and Christine there at the ESA program, I think they've really got their stuff together, because they've hired up, they've got processes and systems. And my wife's a Class Wallet approved vendor, and she uses Class Wallet. She's getting paid in like 2 days now. The issue that people have to understand is the contract is between the parent and the state. So the parent has to turn the invoices into the state, and then the state reviews them for appropriateness and then sends them to Class Wallet. What we tell vendors, because that's another thing we do, is help people become ESA vendors. We tell them, hey, when you invoice the parent, it's real simple. Have the parent, when they email the invoice in, have them copy you so you know that the parent did it. Because really the vendor's sort of out there on their own. The vendor has a relationship with Class Wallet, but not really directly with the ESA program. They have a relationship with Class Wallet, and they have a relationship with the parent. So those 4 teams working together are what make that circle happen on the payment. So
the brain trust of your company, Educational Services Alliance, I have 2 educators, I got the nephew who's the tech, and then I got Chris Holmberg.
What the heck do I do?
Right? That's not. I mean, that's kind of the question, but in the end, so what did you? What's your journey to team up with your wife and these folks to do this?
Yeah. So, I got a finance degree from Texas Tech. Get your guns up.
Red Raiders.
Yeah, Red Raiders. And started with a big $5 billion bank in downtown Fort Worth in 1989. And it was during the Texas banking crisis. So it was 4 different banks in 5 years. You talk about being on a learning curve. I loved it. Like I got to, really learn and understand how businesses work, and I loaned money to very, wealthy people, doctors. I banked all the doctors, Justin, Tandy executives. I mean, it was a great learning experience. And I also did commercial lending. My wife worked for Mutual of Omaha at the time, and then we took a transfer to Western Oklahoma with her company. And I went into banking because I always wanted my own company. And I thought, well, the first thing I'm going to need to do is understand money and banking and how that works. So once I get that, I'll go start my own business. Sure. So she did that, and I went to work for an entrepreneur that had a radio station, a couple of radio stations, a tower, TV, startup newspaper. And so that was like, I'm going to be his business manager. And he ended up being chairman of the National Association of Broadcasters. So he was in Washington, D.C. It was right when digital was coming out. And so I was a kid in a candy store. I was learning, I was doing. And then he came back, and it was just not a very good environment. So I left that, went to work for one of our vendors, and that's where I really started to sell. And I did copy machines, printing, office supplies, not very glamorous, but a lot of fun, especially when you get to visit with everybody in Western Oklahoma, because I had a huge territory. We took a transfer with my wife's company to Omaha because she was with Mutual of Omaha. She was in corporate HR. And I started working for a company called the Associates, who we banked. And I got to sit in on the credit committees in my banking time. I was an assistant credit manager. So I sat in a room like on the walnut room, just like you would picture, big walnut table, gold fixtures, gray-haired old guys. And these poor little loan officers would come in there, and they would just have to dodge bullets trying to sell their deals. But I got to see that. And one of the companies that came in was this company called the Associates. And I'll never forget, it was the only company the chairman and president of the bank said, we don't even need to talk about this. This is a great company. Give them their line of credit, move on. And so I got to go to work for them doing very creative financing for construction equipment. And I did that, and I handled Nebraska and Iowa, most of Iowa. And then we got pregnant with our third child. So we had a child in Dallas, Matt, a child in Woodward, Blaine, and then Holly was conceived in Omaha, but we moved to Colorado where my wife had family.
I won't ask him about the details of the conceiving.
Yeah.
It's a family show.
We have like a little souvenir. We have a souvenir from every place we've been. But no, my wife, we decided, hey, she needs to leave the corporate. This was scary. Like, she needs to leave her corporate job. I'm going to be the sole breadwinner. She's going to stay home and raise babies, because we had 3 kids now. And it just was like, so we moved to Woodland Park, Colorado, where my wife's family lived. And then I had all of Colorado doing financing. So I took a transfer with my company. Okay. And, that was a pretty big faith leap. It was kind of like, hey, God, I don't know how we're going to do this, because, we didn't do the Dave Ramsey financial piece, which I wish we had. That's like my little tip for everybody. If you have people you care about and you get to go to their wedding, buy them Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, because it's the best wedding gift you can give. So we didn't, have the best financial, even though I was a finance guy, my wife wasn't. And we were still trying to figure all that out. And I'm like, man, how are we going to do this? But it's interesting that she had her 401k, I had mine. We both believed in that, because that was one thing I'd learned from finance, time value of money. And when we moved, it was right before 9/11. And I had all her money sitting in cash, and mine was sitting invested. And God provided, because what happened is I was so busy with my new role that I never invested that money. Well, the stock market went from like 13,000 to 6,000. And then I put her money in. And even though she wasn't working for our retirement, it took me 15 years to catch up. Sure. Now, you don't ever want to try to time the market, but you can't tell me that wasn't God saying, I got you.
So you come to the ESA company as a guy who's a finance business guy.
Banking, finance, sales, broadcasting,
So what were you doing right before
Yeah.
you started the company?
So when I moved to another God story, so I moved to.
We like God stories.
Yeah,
here.
I love God
It's
stories.
the first name of the title.
So we lived at 8,000 feet, and it's snowing like I'll get out, and it's December, and I'm like, the company I was working for, I had gone to work for another company and helped them get started in the construction lending business, but they ended up, it was great. I love the people, but they ended up having some policies that I wasn't aware of. And it was really restricting the business that I could do. And it wasn't fun. And telling people that, hey, I just did a $3 million deal with you, but I can't do any more because the bank has more exposure than they want. And I'm like, whoa, what? Like, I'm just getting started with this, we have a relationship. But anyway, so I literally was praying to God, give me something that I could do that I could still be in this business with these great people. And a buddy of mine from Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers, who I worked with doing construction equipment financing because they're construction equipment auctions, called me and said, hey, I'm taking over Albuquerque. I want you to take my territory. It was like that day. So I'm like, done. And of course, whirlwind went through that. So I did an 18-year stint with Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers. First, I started doing sales in Southern Colorado. So I drove from Garden City, Kansas to Telluride, Colorado, 10 hours across, 4 hours north and south, because I went up to Denver and down to Trinidad. But it was just lovely. And then I worked in Denver. And then my boss said, hey, why aren't you applying for the manager position in Phoenix? And I'm like, at that time, I lived on a 40-acre ranch in the middle of Pike National Forest.
Sure.
At an hour drive to Denver, 45 minutes to the Springs. My wife and I would sit out in the hot tub watching the stars at night. I was like, it doesn't get any better than this. But I knew to grow, I needed to lead people. And so I took a management position in Phoenix, and that's brought me here. And then I got more responsibilities. I was a director for the Southwest. So I had like part of California, well, half of California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. And I helped, train salespeople and managers, salespeople to become salespeople and managers to become managers. And it was awesome. And then one day I'm in Vegas at a sale, and the CEO asked me to take him to the airport. He wants to talk to me. So I drive him, you drive your CEO to the airport when he asks you. And he said, hey, I'm going to do this new thing called sales effectiveness. And I'm like, what? I've never even heard of it. He goes, yeah, it's this new thing. And, I want you to lead it or work with a guy to lead it who I'm bringing in. And you guys are I like what you do. I want you to do it all over the US, Canada, and probably helping globally. So I did that for 5 years with them. So it was working with the C-suite, the executives, working with the sales leaders, understanding I was a subject matter expert for what we did. They would say, hey, this is our goal. How do we execute on it? And so I'd help them plan and then execute on sales goals, and worked a lot. I worked with a lot of the sales technology as well.
So basically, in the end, you guys saw the opportunity of the ESA, of the empowerment scholarships, and you saw that there was, as we like to say in entrepreneurship, solve people's pain.
Yeah, another God thing, because after I retired from Ritchie Brothers, I just was ready to do my own thing. And I mean, again, I always wanted my own company. It's just I kept doing things that were kind of fun, and some things changed at Ritchie Brothers a little bit, and I was ready to do something different. And so that was right about the time ESAs became universal. And my wife had then become an ESA vendor, and Tammy Johnson, our partner and our CEO, she had been a vendor since 2015. And she had trained a lot of people to become ESA vendors. Well, we go to the same church, Desert Springs Community Church up in Goodyear, and they do MOPS together, mothers of preschoolers, and they got to talking, and a lot of mothers homeschool. And Tammy said, look, at the time my wife was just decided to leave public education. Her mom was real sick and older, and she needed to care for her. Tammy's like, well, this is fantastic. You can still teach with the flexibility. I'll help you set up your own teaching business.
Gotcha.
Be an ESA vendor. So we did that. And then when it became universal, we just saw a need. And I heard them talking about, hey, there's, this thing's going to explode. We need more teachers. There's no system, an easy way for parents to engage in all of the services and to find all the teachers. And so we got to talking, and we said a website would do that. And so that was the birthing of ESA Connection.
So the clients for ESA Connection is going to be teachers and other kind of vendors that want to provide services that they can be paid through Arizona's Empowerment Scholarship.
Yes, and so it's free for parents. That was like one of our founding principles. It's got to be free for parents.
Right.
So parents basically get in there, and there's a 8-step process, takes about 4 minutes, and they input what their learner needs. On the other side of that, the vendors, teachers, educational service providers, because it's therapists, it's curriculum, it's you name it, right? And
Sure.
then there's a lot of people that aren't teachers, but they are teaching. Like life skills is huge. There's one company that we work with, Kyle Davis, KD's auto service. He teaches life skills for automobile servicing.
I love that.
And everybody's like, my husband is not very good at it. My kids need to know how to take care of their automobiles. And when you're looking at that, there's a lot of critical thinking skills to understanding how automobiles work, and there's a lot of lessons there. But a guy like Kyle would have never, is not what you would consider a traditional teacher. So to be a vendor, you have to have a high school diploma, and that's it. And there's kind of a funny story about that, and I haven't fact checked this, so forgive me, but somebody who I respect very much told me this story, and so I think it's true. But way back when, 25 years ago, when Arizona was really trying to get the charter school thing and the homeschool thing was trying to get started, there was some friction, right? And I think the school system was like, well, our teachers have to pass a test and they have to be certified. So parents should have to do that too. And, there was some contention there. And finally it was like, okay, fine. So the parents took the test and of course didn't do very well. But these are parents and these are their kids.
Right.
And mama bears are going to kick in and do what their cubs need, right?
Yep.
And so like the next year they went back, they studied, they figured out what they needed to do. And what I heard was they actually outscored the teachers on the teacher test. And so it's like, oh, you know what? We're going to remove that requirement. We don't need you guys to do that anymore. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's kind of a fun story. So, but back to your point about, yes, so free for parents, and then vendors can either do a free service if they want. And so that allows everybody to participate in the community forums. They can start discussions. They can bring resources in. They can rate and review teachers and resources. That was real important for us. They can also post news and events. We want them to be educational news and events, but this is an online community.
Right.
And we kind of built it and then we're giving it to the community. It's okay, now you guys take it and run. So we don't curate it. So if somebody's going to put nasty stuff on there, they're going to put nasty stuff on there. And of course we'll go in and we'll referee in like if something's really like this is,
Sure.
We have our policies if it, in our online terms. If it doesn't meet that for the community, then we'll get involved. But that is why you have to give us your email address, and then we validate it, because we want, if you're going to be part of the community and you're going to do things like that, then you're not going to be anonymous. Like your picture, we ask them to put a profile. They don't have to.
Right.
And their name, they don't have to. But like if somebody's really making a bad, bunch of negative comments and we don't have a picture and they don't even have their name, then we're flicking them. Like you're not a good member of this community.
So what I love about this is the idea that we've had this amazing disruption of education, right?
Oh, yeah.
Not just through academic freedom, but COVID lockdowns were just a train wreck. So what happened was you had more parents run to charter schools, but also run to homeschooling, right?
That's right.
Which is playing into what you guys are offering. At the same time, I know a whole bunch of teachers who quit their job, left their job, they didn't want to get a vax, they got canned, all of these various things. So the idea that you're providing this connection.
Right. I like it.
You're
getting it.
Look at me.
Yeah.
You can train this monkey pretty easily. It's the idea that they have that option.
Yeah.
Like you said, they don't know. We've had this, Clint and I, one of our partners here, had this discussion on the Live the Dream podcast about microschools, right? Find 10 parents, get your ESA, pool your money, find a great teacher, take the kids on the best field trips they ever had in their lives, and provide a much better learning environment and better attainment of goals. And so I love the idea of this. Is pretty neat.
So it even gets better because we need teachers, right? And we're going to have a lot of teachers that are retiring, but one of the things, and we talked about Matt Beinberg, and I love Matt.
From the Goldwater Institute.
From the Goldwater Institute, Director of Educational Policy. We got to give him his cred. But phenomenal guy, very smart guy. And we were talking about this site 6 months ago. And I said, well, I think, we're going to get a lot of teachers coming over. And he goes, no. He goes, I don't think you will. He goes, you're going to get the ones retiring. And he goes, you'll probably get the ones like 1, 2, or 3 years in, because like they're now gotten a full dose of reality. And it's like, I don't see a path to doing this for 20 years to get my retirement. And so, but you know what? These young teachers, they have a heart, an aptitude. They've got some training. They've got some experience. So if they want to start their own education business, but do it on their terms, they can do that. So one of the other things, and we really took this from Tammy, from her head, we wanted to take everything in Tammy's head and put it in the site so we could make it scalable. So we came up with a 7-step process that literally you can do for $85, and that goes to the state for your LLC. And 2 hours, you can go from zero to having your own business. We'll show you step by step how to get on the state's website and get your LLC, step by step, and where to go to get your tax ID. We even give you a website. So it's not the most glamorous website, but it's enough to get you started and get you connected.
No, I went through the whole video of how to set that up.
So, okay,
and
perfect.
It's easy. And what's the website? They can check that out?
ESAconnection.com.
All right. So one last thing before we get going is talk about people who are watching now, right? So it's who should be listening now and going to ESAconnection.com right now. Who's the total market for you guys? I guess
everybody. So it's seriously. I mean,
all right. What's a little limited? Market?
Let's scale that down.
More.
So for sure, if you are in the ESA program and you want an easier way to connect, and that you can have more confidence in. We're new. We've only been launched a month. We have about 300 or 400 people on there, but we expect to have over 70,000. I mean, there's 70,000 parents or families in the program now. It's free for parents. So, get on there and start playing. We have about 80 vendors, and I think we'll end up. There's 58,000 teachers in Arizona. I think 10% is probably a good number to shoot for of, teachers that are retiring, teachers that those young teachers that don't see a path that want to change careers.
There's lots of frustrated teachers. I was on a board of a pretty successful charter school, and I saw them getting out of K-12s, taking pay cuts, getting out of the state retirement system just to get away from that. So
I had one tell me they went into coding only to get replaced by AI already. Because that's a big deal. But so we want to give them a path to their own business. So you've got parents that they're complex spenders, number one. Vendors who, and then there's going to be public school. We're not against public school. I want public school to be great. My kids are all public school educated.
Our discussion we've had on academic freedom here is we want K-12 to get better. Right. But
this will make it happen because they're going to have to compete. Right.
Yep.
We actually, one of our steps is you can sit down with a very simple spreadsheet. You can type in the numbers, run different scenarios for, what you want to charge, the size of your school, how many kids, what you want to save, what's your startup cost. But very easily you can get to $75,000 a year net, working 27 hours a week, having your summers off, and probably teaching anywhere from like 6 kids to maybe 24 kids during the week, depending on how you want to do your classes.
Right.
And teaching what you want and dealing with just the parent, the kids, and what you're teaching. None of the other stuff, right? So I think it's
no assistant to the assistant superintendent.
None of that. No board meetings. No
diversity and educational.
No in-service days. Just teaching, right?
I love it.
And there's a great person I just love. Microschool Solution is a website that's set up to help people do microschool.
Tell us about this Rachel Noble lady you were telling us about earlier.
Yeah, so Rachel is what I would consider one of the pioneers in microschooling, and it's such a new concept. Like, she's a pioneer, and it's like she's been doing it since 2018, like 5 years.
Yep.
But she just has such a heart and a mind and a passion for schooling. One of the things she'll tell you, and I think this is where sort of the magic happens with microschools, is it's all about the adult in the room, and you have to be the right kind of adult.
Sure.
It's not like public school teaching where you have a teacher just we used to call it show up and throw up, just telling the kids this is what you need to know. It's a guide that sits down and talks to the learners and say, what do you want to learn about? What's important to you? And then helping guide them through that learning process. And because it's what's important to them, they own it. And you may have 10 kids in a microschool all doing a little bit different thing. And so it's very important that teacher let those kids learn. It's, use the Socratic method, and that is where the magic happens with a micro school, and it's why it's so much more different than public school, which works for a lot of people. Like if for the core to educate on some standards for
Right.
a certain amount might work, but there's a lot of kids that they need education the way that's meaningful for them.
That's what I like about when you talk about my friend Drew Heaton. She's been on the show, my radio show before, and we've talked about a book called Dumbing Down by this guy Gatto. It's really amazing. The guy was a New York City Teacher of the Year 3 times, and when he got his award, he literally did the speech that said, "This is all broken." Right? It's
I heard about this.
Something
Yeah,
out of a movie,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there's a very smart old guy, like a Plutarch, Seneca kind of guy out there who said, the purpose of education is lighting the fire, not filling the bucket.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that's why I think when you're talking about Ms. Noble talking about this, what's that magic number, right? That 10 to 12 is the magic number for one person to maximize maximum fire lighting.
Yeah, exactly. And for some people, it might only be 8.
Right.
It really depends on that person. And the cool thing is, you don't have to be necessarily a teacher. In fact, she'll tell you some of the people that make the best micro school teachers and guides are not teachers, because they don't have to unlearn. There's a lot of stuff that if you've been a public school teacher doing it institutionalized one way, that you have to relearn, and that's tough.
Well, what I love about your story, and congratulations on doing all of this, is I'm a free market guy. You're a free market guy.
Absolutely.
Right? And you're entrepreneurs doing the right thing, right? Filling this void, solving the pain, but also providing a connection and a refuge for all of these teachers running from these other areas that they don't feel appreciated or feel safe in, or all of those things we've all read about.
And
so
you're exactly right. And it's not easy going from being a teacher, in kind of like a bureaucracy type is kind of how I think,
Sure.
to being an entrepreneur. But you have to have some faith. You have in yourself. All we're going to do is give you the recipe, and all you got to do is follow the recipe and learn how to cook.
You're a bank guy.
Yep.
What percentage of business owners that are really good at something are not good at being business people?
A lot.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's the
Most.
same thing, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, though, your heart and your passion, and if you really are doing what God put you here to do, you're not going to fail. And we're just here to kind of give you the steps so you don't have to spend weeks trying to figure it out. Like, we've already done that. Just follow these steps, then get down to what you want to do, and the business will take care of itself.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on Educational Services Alliance, ESAConnection.com.
Thank you.
His name is Chris Holmberg. You're the man.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. All right, that's it. That's your latest episode of Faith Family Schools. And again, we're trying our best to expose you to the men and women that are trying to make life better for the regular American through Faith Family Schools. Check us out at faithfamilyschools.com. Everyone have a great day. We'll catch you on the next episode.